Shabbat shalom, everybody. Rashbi here, Rabbi Shmuel Ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen Epstein with you with this week's 10-minute Torah. And this week, we're going to talk about our good friend Korach. But first, as usual, my wife and I had the honor and the pleasure of attending last week the 30th anniversary of the local Jewish Federation, Pomona Valley. And the Jewish Federation, they have areas and offices all over the country. Basically, they coordinate activities. They're sort of a resource. And, they've certainly done some good work with our synagogue, Temple Shalom of Ontario. And, it's just wonderful to have these organizations that promote Judaism and promote Jews. For myself, as you know, I'm sort of a Jew geek. I just love being Jewish, and I have such a love and such a feeling about being Jewish. And when I see other people that share that feeling, and even more donate a lot of money and donate their time, including our own Mike Steffen, who served as president 1 year for the area, Barbara Schwartz, who's been very involved, who goes to these events and just seems to know everybody there. You get a feeling that it really is a community, that we are a community. We're one big family, a small family, but a significant family. And to have that support and see other people that feel the way we do about being Jewish and about Judaism, and how this thing called Judaism needs to survive another 4,000 years, 6,000 years. It's just a real wonderful family. So, and again, I'm happy personally. We welcomed a couple of people into our congregation, and I had the pleasure of going to Los Angeles, making a trip to Los Angeles, and watching Jessie become, adopt Judaism as her home, as her spiritual home, and it was just a wonderful thing. When you see people who, as I like to put it, after birth, decide to choose Judaism. A lot of us just were born Jewish and we just take it for granted and that's it. But to hear these people and how they've gone on this spiritual journey, it's just a wonderful reinforcement as to how truly wonderful Judaism is, with its emphasis on people and its emphasis on God, our Father, and our King, and our relationship that we have with God. It's just wonderful. Okay. Let's talk about Korach, who really didn't feel any of those things. Korach was a Levite. He was a cousin of Moses and Aaron. Now, we've heard in our present day, in modern politics, we've heard that expression, spinning the truth. And we have political rivalries, and, never in recent memory has our country's political landscape been as hyper-partisan as it is today, with people adopting stances. And we have the so-called news channels, the cable news channels, that really, and this is my opinion, are not really news. I mean, sure, they start with the news, but it's really mostly news commentary. And despite your leanings, I think you'll all agree with that. Basically, what that does, and again, this is my opinion, is that a lot of people feel resentful. They feel like government isn't serving them. They have disagreements with how much taxes, how much regulations, and people get angry. And when you get somebody who gets on social media and they espouse the same feelings that you do, but in a very emotional, passionate way, it kind of gives you kind of a sense like, yeah, somebody understands me. But I will submit to you that it goes even beyond that. And you get sort of this epinephrine, this adrenaline rush, this runner's high, which is common when this is what athletes feel. You go out and you run a marathon and your body's pumping, and, with all these secretions, these adrenaline rushes that you're getting. And you get the same when you have a list of tasks. This is what someone told me. And you've checked off the last task, and you get that feeling, wow, when you have an accomplishment, your body rewards you by a natural opioid. That's what it is. That's why people get addicted to things like heroin and, methamphetamine and those type of things. It gives you that physical rush. Same thing when somebody agrees with you, when somebody espouses your view and you feel, oh, wow, yeah, I have that emotional release, that emotional connection. It gives you sort of a high. Well, Korach was the first person in recorded history to do that. And basically, this is right after the spies, the issue of the spies, when God said, I've had it. You've tested me 10 times. I've been patient. I've given you, I have fed you. I've given you water. I've given you shelter. I've protected you from your enemies. And this is what you do. You come back and you get freaked out at a little challenge. He looks at Moses and goes, I'm done. A day for a year, for those of you into astrology and progressive, like we talked about last week. These people don't have the stomach, the guts, the intestinal fortitude to conquer the land. They're going to die out in the wilderness. It's going to take them 39, 40 years. And then their generation that knew not slavery will be the ones to conquer and settle the land. They will be hardier. They will be more up to the task. Okay, so 3,500 years later, here we are looking at it going, yeah, okay. But imagine if you're there at the time and maybe you kind of felt that way, you kind of didn't. Either way, it's like, wow, if slavery wasn't bad enough, now I got to sit out here in this whatever climate it was, wasteland or whatever. I got to sit here and eat manna for the next 40 years. Are you kidding me? So along comes Korach, who wanted to be leader. He fancied himself as leader. And he was a Levite, and he was jealous of the fact that his cousins, Moses and Aaron, who were also Levites and were the clan, the subset, the priests, he wanted to be priest, the man who would be priest, joined by Dathan and Abiram from the tribe of Reuben, who was the firstborn, who really should have been the ones that should have taken the lead because they were firstborn. But after Reuben's behavior, God's like, nah, I don't think so. Not up to it. So everybody's discontent. And after that, people were very susceptible to somebody who comes along and, according to Rabbi Hertz and his discussion of the Midrash, tried to discredit Moses, make him as if these laws were Moses's laws and they were absurd. He says to him, okay, if I've got a garment of wool, do I still need that little blue thread? And Moses is like, yeah, you do. It's a whole different thing. And Korach made it look like it was absolutely absurd. Okay, if I've got a room with Torah scrolls and sacred writings, do I really need the parchment, a mezuzah? And Moses is like, yeah, you do. So he tried to make it look like Moses was just picking at straws, just nitty picking at little things to make your life difficult, to have to put this thread on, have to put the mezuzah up, etc. And in the end, God's like, okay, Moses, what do you want to do? And Moses is like, well, you choose. We'll get our incense fire pans out and you'll make the decision. And as it turned out, Korach, Dathan, and Abiram were swallowed up by the earth and they kind of lost. So you would think that's the end of it. You would think, okay, God rules. Moses and Aaron are the rightful leaders of our congregation. But now they're thinking back to Nadav and Abihu. Same thing with the incense. They're like, do we even dare deal with incense anymore? Because everybody that handles incense ends up getting swallowed by the earth or is out. And now they're like, why do they have to die? So, discontent, which really kind of points the way to the attitude that these people had. They couldn't conceive of the higher power. They saw all the signs and wonders, the plagues, water every 3 days, the manna, the meat that came in every now and then, the cloud that protected them, defeating their enemies. They just couldn't do it. Their minds weren't in the game. And this was really kind of proof. And even God says they've tested me 10 times. Once, twice, 3 times. Okay, now I'm convinced. But come on, 10 times and you're still not convinced? I mean, we're not even talking faith here. We're talking, I've proven to you. So cut me a break. The interesting thing, though, and as we go through the Torah, we see this cycle happening again and again, is that the Parsha ends with gifts to the Levites and Kohanim. In other words, it ends on a positive note. The same way the Tochacha, remember that warning where God tells Moses tells the people, okay, if you do what you're supposed to do, you do the commandments. We have a few verses that says everything will be good. The land will produce its produce. You'll eat, you'll be satisfied, wonderful. But if you don't, and now we have a whole succession of ever increasing horrible things that's going to happen to Israel if you don't. It goes on and on. So, but the Torah doesn't leave it there. It says, but in the end, God's waiting for open arms. You will come back. You will repent. You will have remorse. You will come back to the mitzvot and you will prosper again. I mean, a message of him. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope you're keeping cool. I've got a fan going. That's what you hear in the background, maybe. We're going to have an interesting Sunday and in person, our last of the summer. Please be there if you see this prior to Sunday. We're going to have the kids do some things. It's going to be Alpha, Aleph, Bet, their meetings associated with holidays and things, something like that, what they got planned. What I'm going to be doing with the adults, we're going to be looking at Talit. We're going to be putting on Tefillin. We'll do a practice morning service. We'll discuss the compare and contrast to Shabbat, and it's going to be fun. All right. Thank you, as always, for listening. Shabbat Shalom, and talk to you soon.